Tonight, we're unpacking the most misunderstood relationship in American gang history: MS-13 and the Mexican Mafia. For decades, one side collected taxes and enforced rules, the other side grew across cities, prisons, and borders. Then, inside federal custody, the pact cracked open, starting with a door-blocked ambush in Virginia and ending with murders in Texas that triggered a nationwide prison lockdown. This is the real story, in order, names, dates, places, what's verified, what's reported, and what it means right now. Quick note, I'll flag anything that isn't firmly verified. Everything else comes from court records, indictments, and major paper reporting. No glamour, no gore, just the paper trail. MS-13 begins in 1980s Los Angeles, Pico Union, Westlake, and the wider Rampart District, where tens of thousands of Salvadorans fled a civil war and landed in neighborhoods already mapped by LA's gang politics. What started as protection crews around parties, punk shows, and street corners hardened into cliques. The name Mara Salvatrucha blends Mara, a swarm or crowd, and Salvatrucha, Salvadoran and street smart. Early LA cliques developed their own micro-identities, slang, and rituals, borrowing from local gang culture while keeping Central American roots. These crews learned the rules of Los Angeles fast. Territory meant money meant protection, and jail meant a different set of politics. In the county jail and state prisons, Southern California Latino street gangs were categorized as sureños, below a prison-based authority that predated MS-13 by decades, La M, the Mexican Mafia. That system, politics on the yard, taxes up the chain, would later explain why the number 13 gets added to a lot of names in the Southland. The 13 is not random, it's the 13th letter of the alphabet M for Mexican. In Southern California jails and prisons, aligning under the Sureño umbrella historically meant acknowledging La M's governance. Pay the tax, follow the rules, respect the chain of command. For MS-13 cliques anchored in Los Angeles, adopting the 13 signaled that alignment. The payoff was protection and predictability inside. The price was tribute and discipline when rules were broken. Outside of Southern California, and especially in systems not dominated by La M, the 13 could be absent, weaker, or mostly symbolic. This difference, California versus everywhere else, will matter later. MS-13 didn't stay local. In the 1990s and 2000s, deportations and migration pushed the gang outward, first across Southern California, then into the DC, Maryland, Virginia corridor, Long Island and New York City, Northern Virginia and suburban Maryland, North Carolina, Houston and Dallas, the Carolinas, and pockets in dozens of other states. At the same time, deportations repopulated cliques in El Salvador, Honduras, and Guatemala, where local conditions, post-war demobilization, weak institutions, and extortion economies gave MS-13 a different kind of footprint. Smaller outposts surfaced in Spain and Italy along diaspora lines. This growth wasn't centrally planned from LA. It was a patchwork. Local leaders, local crews, and local business sharing a name and some norms, but operating with serious autonomy. That autonomy becomes a key difference between how MS-13 moves in the United States versus under centralized leadership in El Salvador. In the United States, MS-13 is decentralized. Think cliques and programs, Parkview, Normandy, Sailors, Fulton, Hollywood, Western Locos on the West Coast, Sailors, Langley Park, and others on the East Coast, each with local shot callers, money streams, and conflicts. Some cities coordinate across cliques, others don't. When members land in California county jails or state prisons, the politics change. As sureños, they fall under La M's rules within those systems. Pay taxes, follow directives, no freelancing that creates heat without a green light. In El Salvador, the historical picture is different. For years, a national board, known as the Ramfla Nacional, directed programs and cliques nationwide, often from inside prisons. U.S. terrorism and racketeering indictments have named several top Ramfla figures, alleging they ordered murders, coordinated business, and moved money across borders. In the last few years, arrests, extraditions, and a sweeping crackdown inside El Salvador have badly disrupted that chain of command. We'll come back to that. La M, the Mexican Mafia, is not a street gang. It's a prison-based organization made up of carnales, made members, who exert authority over the Sureño network inside SoCal lockups and influence the streets through taxes and discipline. There is no single CEO power rests, with influential members who can communicate and enforce. Prosecutors in Los Angeles have long described La M as able to organize collections and violence through written kites, coded calls, and intermediaries on the street. In California, that governance historically included MS-13 when those members were in systems where La M dominates. Inside California systems, the rules are the rules. You pay your share, you don't act without authorization, and you don't put heat on the umbrella without permission. When a gang refuses to pay or violates a line, say, an unauthorized killing, a hit in a forbidden zone, or a move that invites a crackdown, a green light can be issued. A green light is not mythology. It's authorization, sometimes an order, to target a person or gang until the debt is paid or the offense is resolved. Reported but not documented event by event are green lights against specific MS-13 cliques in the early 1990s tied to missed tribute or out-of-bounds violence. Treat that as credible pattern, not a dated timeline. The discipline mechanism existed, and MS cliques felt it when they crossed the wrong line. The bigger picture here is that in California systems, MS-13's day-to-day survival inside depended on playing by La M's rules, even as MS cliques pursued their own agendas on the street. Everything we've said so far, the umbrella, the taxes, the green lights, describes California-dominated systems. But the federal system is different. Federal penitentiaries mix inmates from across the country. East Coast MS-13 cliques don't automatically live under California's politics. Their primary loyalties can be to their own program leaders, not to La M. That creates a gray zone. For years, it held together without high-profile clashes. That changed in 2020 at a federal facility in rural Virginia. United States Penitentiary Lee, Pennington Gap, Virginia, January 15, 2020. Court records, plea agreements, and a federal judge's written opinion outline what happened. 5 MS-13 inmates carried out a choreographed attack on Anthony Coco Zaragoza. Who is Zaragoza? Los Angeles street history puts him as a former chief enforcer for the Columbia Lil Psychos, an 18th Street clique that taxed MacArthur Park's open-air drug market in the 1990s. In 2002, a federal jury in LA convicted him of racketeering offenses, including multiple murders and murder conspiracies. That December, he was sentenced to life without parole. After entering federal custody, investigative files and testimony cited in major paper reporting say Zaragoza was inducted into the Mexican Mafia. Back to Virginia. According to charging documents and plea records, 2 attackers, Morris Alexis Flores and Angel Moreno Guevara, entered Zaragoza's cell with improvised metal weapons. At the doorway, 3 more, Carlos Alfredo Rabioso Almonte, Julio Angel Chavez, and Germán Archimedes Hernandez, held the threshold and fought off inmates who tried to help. Surveillance cameras captured the struggle spilling into the range as Zaragoza forced the door. He survived, bleeding, with multiple stab and puncture wounds. Photographs described in testimony showed blood on the walls and a sink ripped from the concrete. What was the motive? Interview notes summarized in a court order capture the attackers' framing. They felt disrespected by the Mexican Mafia. One said Zaragoza had asked for a list of MS-13 lifers, men who wouldn't fear new cases, who could assault staff if he was sent to the hole or messed with. They declared, "We live and die MS," and warned they weren't the only ones willing to turn away from La M. The legal outcome? By 2021 to 2022, the 5 defendants had pleaded guilty to various counts: conspiracy and attempt to murder, assault with a dangerous weapon, possession of a weapon in prison, and received federal sentences. At one sentencing, a prosecutor said the attack lit a fuse. That line will matter in a minute. In the months that followed, reporting and statements from officials described the Bureau of Prisons taking steps to separate many MS-13 inmates in federal custody, concerned that the long-standing equilibrium with Mexican Mafia-aligned Sureños had fractured. Remember the distinction. Inside California systems, MS-13 still operated under La M's governance. Inside federal penitentiaries, especially outside the West Coast orbit, the ground was shifting. 2 years after the Virginia ambush, the violence exploded in Texas. United States Penitentiary Beaumont, January 31, 2022. In just a few minutes, 7 MS-13 inmates swarmed a group of Sureños, gang members aligned with the Mexican Mafia, killing 2 men, Guillermo Riojas and Andrew Pineda. 2 others were injured. The aftermath was immediate and national. The Bureau of Prisons locked down federal facilities across the United States for nearly a week. Federal indictments and press releases from the Eastern District of Texas later described the attack as a coordinated MS-13 hit. By 2024 to 2025, the cases had largely wrapped. Leaders drew life or decades-long sentences. and prosecutors explicitly tied the violence to the unraveling of the MS-13 and Mexican Mafia relationship inside federal custody. Let's address the request you always ask. List every clash, every green light with dates. Here's the honest, useful answer, verified, with names, dates, locations, and paper. The January 15, 2020 assault on Anthony Coco Zaragoza at USP Lee, Virginia, and the January 31, 2022 double homicide of Guillermo Riojas and Andrew Pineda at USP Beaumont, Texas, plus the nationwide lockdown that followed. Those are on record, sourced, and adjudicated. Reported, but not documented as a neat date-by-date ledger. In California, during the 1990s, numerous MS-13 cliques faced green lights or discipline for missed tribute or unauthorized violence under the Sereno system. Credible investigative reporting and expert accounts describe the pattern, but public, itemized calendars of each order are scarce. If a future court record surfaces with dated lists, we'll update. Until then, we treat the early period as a documented pattern rather than a timeline spreadsheet. United States first, MS-13 remains decentralized across American cities, local cliques, local business, and local leadership. In California custody, MS members still fall under La MA's governance. Outside of California, and especially in federal facilities mixing regions, the politics are more fluid, and after 2020, more volatile. El Salvador next. The Ranfla Nacional MS-13's national board has been hit by a wave of arrests and U.S. indictments, including terrorism charges, that cast the gang's leadership as a transnational command directing programs across borders. Several top figures have been arrested, extradited, or are in U.S. custody. Inside El Salvador, the government's state of exception has incarcerated huge numbers and built mega-prisons, severely degrading the gang's ability to coordinate openly. Whatever command persists is clandestine, fragmented, and under constant pressure. La MA, meanwhile, remains what it has long been, a prison-based cadre with the capacity to tax and discipline the Sereno network inside California systems and to influence street-level collections and discipline through intermediaries. Cases in recent years show that, even with law enforcement pressure, the mechanisms tax, order, punishment continue to function where La MA's power is strongest. Three forces pushed the brake. First, venue. California county jails and state prisons are environments where La MA's rules are the air you breathe. Federal penitentiaries mix inmates and cultures from everywhere. East Coast and non-California, MS-13 members do not automatically accept a California-centric chain of command. Second, identity. The words captured in the Virginia case weren't about money first, they were about respect. "We live and die MS," the attackers said. To them, La MA's authority didn't outrank MS-13's identity, especially hundreds of miles from Los Angeles. Third, momentum. Once the Zaragoza attack lit a fuse, the temperature rose. Beaumont turned that heat into homicide and a system-wide lockdown. After that, separation policies and prosecutions hardened the federal split into a new normal. In the U.S., MS-13 remains entrenched in Southern California, the D.C., Maryland, Virginia region, Long Island, and New York City, and pockets across dozens of states. In Central America, El Salvador, Honduras, Guatemala. The street footprint has been badly disrupted by arrests and emergency laws, but extortion economies and local networks haven't vanished. Smaller presences continue in parts of Europe tied to migration. The map shifts, but the name and the model remain. So, is MS-13 breaking away from the Mexican Mafia everywhere? No. The split we can prove is venue-specific, federal penitentiaries after 2020. In California systems, MS-13 historically remains under the Sereno umbrella governed by La MA. Both statements can be true because the systems are different, the power centers are different, and the incentives are different. Did MS-13 invent the 13? No. The 13 in Southern California gang names points to the letter M and the Mexican Mafia's authority inside those systems. Is there a single boss of La MA? No. Power is held by made members who can communicate and enforce. Influence rises and falls with prosecutions and custody moves. Is there a national boss of MS-13 in the US? No. US MS-13 is a network of cliques and programs with local leadership. In El Salvador, there was a national board. Many of those figures are now indicted or under arrest. Why did the federal system crack when California didn't? Because federal yards mix regions and politics. California yards impose a single governance model. Different ecosystems produce different outcomes. Verified with court and official records, The meaning of the 13 in the Southern California context. MS-13 spread across American cities in Central America. The Ramfla Nacional's role and recent arrests. The January 15, 2020 assault on Anthony Coco Zaragoza at USP Lee. The January 31, 2022 double homicide of Guillermo Riojas and Andrew Pineda at USP Beaumont. And the nationwide federal lockdown after Beaumont. Reported but not precisely timelined. Repeated green lights and discipline against MS-13 cliques in California in the early 1990s. Treat that early era as a documented pattern rather than a calendar of events, unless future public records fill in every date. The point isn't that MS-13 and the Mexican Mafia are permanent enemies. The point is that context rules. In California systems, MS-13 historically moves as part of the Sereno order under La M's rules. In federal penitentiaries since 2020, documented violence shows the relationship fractured, starting with a door-blocked ambush in Virginia and culminating in murders in Texas that locked down the entire system. Two systems, two playbooks, one name that means different things depending on where you stand. If you want to follow up on how these politics change daily life on the yard, who programs where, who walks with whom, and how separation works in practice, comment Yard Politics, and I'll pull the paperwork.